Hi everyone, welcome to the start of the June buzzwordathon reading vlog. And apologies, you are getting the dual sounds of both the dishwasher and the washing machine because one bedroom apartment living. I'm a hot mess at the moment, still. So yeah, this is where we are. If you are unfamiliar with Buzzwordathon, Readathon, it is hosted by Kayla from Books and Lala, and it features two different prompts. There is a buzzword in the title, and there is also a cover prompt where Kayla has selected words and also items that feature on covers that are, you know, topical and very popular at the moment. This is going to be a super quick intro. I did mention the books that I'm planning on reading for this in my TBR video, which went up last week, and I am planning on reading Unforgettable by Marley Valentine as my word challenge because the challenge was to feature a memory word in the title. I'm still not convinced I'm going to have enough books to recommend after I finish reading Unforgettable. We'll see how I go. And then the cover challenge was to read a book that has celestial features on the front cover. For that, I'm planning on picking up Beneath the Indigo Sky by Hawthorne, which is a queer romance. Actually, both of these are queer romance, which is very applicable for, you know, Pride Month. This one has an aurora on it, and it apparently is set in Alaska. I've been looking for books set in Alaska, but I've clearly never read the synopsis of this book, even though I've read the first chapter of it. So yeah, that tells you everything you need to know about me. I'm actually going to be reading Unforgettable by Marley Valentine tonight. It's part of the Vino and Veritas series, which I've been reading through over the last couple of months. And yeah, when we're done, I'll tell you about the book. I'll give you some recommendations for other books featuring memory words, and then we'll come back later on and read Beneath the Indigo Sky. I'm going to take a breath and start reading. Hi friends, I'm back to talk about Unforgettable by Marley Valentine. It's the next day because why would I have filmed last night when I finished reading? I wouldn't. Also, I'm really pink because I'm hot, probably because I'm wearing a cardigan. Even though it's not exactly warm, so I need to wear something warm, but I'm overheating ridiculously now. Also, I have Mr. Bump earrings because that just describes my life and my health recently. So Mr. Bump is me. That's me. If I sound rough, my throat is killing me, but I read the book last night and it was a really good life choice because it was just what I needed to read. So Unforgettable is an contemporary romance. It is set in the Vino and Veritas series, which is part of, I think, Serena Bowen's True North universe. And it's quite a large collection of stories by different authors, all set in the same fictional town, centered around this queer-friendly bar, Vino and Veritas. It's not only a bar, but it also has a bookstore attached to it as well, so it's very cozy. And in this book, we meet Oz, who does a lot of the odd jobs around Vino and Veritas, and Reeve. And the two of them meet at the very start in the first chapter. They've connected on a dating app, and they're meeting for the first time. It's a hookup app, but it's very much a queer-friendly one that does lots of deep diving and things like that, and is generally considered safe in this world. And so Oz and Reeve connect and have this great chemistry. They have a fantastic night together. They know it's a one-night only thing. They don't really exchange lots of information. They kind of get to know each other, but, you know, nothing significant except that, you know, Reeve has left Connecticut. He completed college over in Seattle and is spending sort of his last summer in Vermont before he has to go home and participate in the family finance business. We also find out that Oz feels like his family perceives him as a failure because everyone in his family is some kind of doctor, but he works in a bar. He's perfectly happy working in a bar, but he feels like all of the comments, and a lot of them reflect sort of their internal, but they haven't really thought about it, thoughts about the fact that, you know, they're concerned that he doesn't have a real job, etc. And, you know, when is he going to grow up? So that's kind of the backstory of the two characters. They then meet again when Reeve gets a job working in the bookstore part of Vino and Veritas, and he doesn't know that Oz works there when he gets the job. He finds that out afterwards and is then torn because he knew that it was a one-night stand thing and whatever. And so it takes them a little while to get their footing, and then they become good friends. And we know that there's deeper layers to this friendship and the fact that they both really want more, but Reeve is on a limited timeline. He's not going to be there past the summer, but Oz needs a date to his sister's wedding, and he accidentally tells his family that he has a new boyfriend, Reeve. And so that means Reeve ends up going to a few family dinners in the lead up to it. And he's quite happy to play the part of the fake boyfriend as long as, you know, they've put conditions and stipulations in place to make sure that neither of them get hurt through this process. But of course, real feelings take over. And it was just really lovely because they're both men in their 20s trying to figure out their life, trying to figure out how to live up to their families' expectations, families that they love and they care about, and they don't want to let down, but they also want to have their own dreams. There's a really cool side plot where Oz has this really great foodie Instagram page where he pairs food and music, and Reeve gets involved and is like, no, you could build this up, like you have such a good following and people are really interested in this, you could actually make this a job. I love seeing social media jobs like that because it didn't feel exploitative. Is that a word? Exploitive? I don't know, whatever that word is. And I mean, who doesn't love food and music? It made me hungry while I was reading it, so it sounded utterly delicious, all of the food that they were talking about while taking photos of it. And I mean, there is a third act breakup, which not always my favorite thing, but also felt like it kind of needed to be something that these characters went through to recognize what it is that they wanted in their life and also how they can stand up to the people in their life and set healthy boundaries in place. So, you know, for the sake of that, I will accept that third act breakup. As for other recommendations, apparently I don't really read books with memory words in the title. The last one was Murder by Memory by Olivia Waite, which I think I've talked about in one of these vlogs anyway, which is a novella-length sci-fi mystery set on a traveling spaceship where a ship's detective is awakened in a body that's not her own and has to solve the murder of a character. And it's very twisty and turny and awesome because it's set in space and I love that kind of stuff. And then there's Blaze of Memory by Nalini Singh, which is the 7th book in the Psy Changeling series and honestly is probably not one of my favourite books in the series, but that said, I'd probably need to go back and reread it. It's been a while since I reread it. And it's about, I think, a human from memory, MMC, who ends up finding a woman who has completely lost her memories and been programmed to carry out tasks that she wouldn't otherwise carry out. And it's their romance and relationship. I remember when I first read it, it felt like a bit of a filler book in the Psy Changeling series, but it has memory in the title, which is more than I can say for many of the other books that I've read recently. I mean, I could probably go searching in the hundreds and hundreds of picture books that I own, but I can't. So we're gonna leave it at 2 recommendations. And tonight, I'm very excited. I don't have to do any work, but I am going to read Beneath the Indigo Sky. So I'm super excited. I'm going to go shower and eat food, and then I'm going to sit down and read and just enjoy my night. Hi everyone. So it is the next day. I have finished reading Beneath the Indigo Sky by Rayne Hawthorne and it was delightful, but it's also a bit of an emotional roller coaster and gut punch in terms of feelings. So we have Jace and Namid. Jace is a man who has grown up in Alaska his whole life. He is one of a twin, but at the start of the book we are at the funeral of his twin brother. His parents died years earlier, so it was just Jace and his brother, and Jordan has died in an accident and Jace is just not able to process this. Like, he's literally a walking shadow of himself. And he's not a super outgoing guy in general. Like, he and his brother owned the local mechanic shop in their very small town, and his brother was the more outgoing of the two of them, but he's like even more withdrawn for obvious reasons. So, you know, very heavy content warnings for grief, some suicidal ideation that's mentioned associated with that, and, you know, some depression and things all interconnected. And then Namid is a man who lives in town. He actually works at the funeral home. He is friends with the man who runs the funeral home. He's a bit of a mystery to himself and to the rest of the town. He doesn't fit in. He really doesn't interact with anyone in the town, and he's been there for 10 years, but he doesn't know anyone. He doesn't have any friends aside from Ken, who runs the funeral home. And we find out that Namid was found by Ken lying in the middle of the road. He was naked. He had no idea of who he was, where he was, how he came to be there, etc. And so Ken has given him a home, and the two of them have made this little found family. Namid feels people's emotions. So very much like an empath, except literally feeling. Like, if he touches someone, he's just overwhelmed by their emotions. And he meets Jace on the day of Jace's brother's funeral. And there's just something about Jace that Namid can't shake. And Ken may or may not encourage him to kind of, you know, if you see him around town, you might check in on him and see how he's going, because obviously he's grieving. After their first meeting, their first real encounter is at the supermarket, or the local sort of convenience store, where Jace has just been staring blankly at a wall of the dairy aisle, essentially. And Namid walks up and recognizes straight away that he's just completely stuck. He takes him into the little cafe area, buys him a tea, and says, I'm going to go do your shopping, write down what you need. And so he does the shopping for him. And then slowly this very tentative, very lovely friendship is struck between these two men. Jace ends up hiring Namid to help do the bookkeeping for the mechanic shop because that was always his brother's job and he's really not good at it. They end up spending time together and they go on these beautiful breakfast dates together, but they don't realize that the other person is interested in them. One, Namid is kind of trying to read Jace, but isn't getting anything, mostly because Jace, all of the positive feelings Jace has are buried so deep inside him. And Jace just assumes that Namid is straight. And once they figure that out, all that stuff out, like their relationship is just beautiful. And their relationship to Ken, who is a man in his 60s who lost his wife years earlier and has been the town funeral home director forever. The three of them are just kind of they just don't fit in the town, and they just form this really gorgeous little found family. Namid has a lot of trauma around hospitals. Ken is injured at one point while they're trying to move some furniture, and Namid he knows that he should be able to go to the hospital with Ken, but he can't, he physically can't because of the overwhelming emotions that he'd feel there. And there is also an on-page assault of Namid because he's gay, so there is sort of the town homophobia element to the story, which is a catalyst for a lot of things that happen in the very, very end of the book. But just be aware of that going into the story. It was just, oh my gosh, it was beautifully written. It was really a lovely story of just very different people finding each other at really difficult moments in their lives. And I had a great time with it, which sounds really weird to say for such a heavy kind of book, but it was just beautifully, beautifully told. So that was for a book with some kind of celestial themed cover. So there was an aurora on the front cover of this one because a big part of the story is that Namid likes to watch the stars and watch the aurora in Alaska and in the Alaskan sky. And so that's a big part of the story. But some other recommendations, one would be Orbital by Samantha Harvey, which I know people either love it or hate it. It is not a book with a plot. It's very much literary fiction. It is set in space. The front cover looks very spacey. It is more of a meditation on life from the perspective of astronauts on the International Space Station. We start out with one woman who is on the space station when her mother passes away. And so it's kind of all of these astronauts reflecting on what it means to be alive, to live, to be human, while they're looking down at the Earth as this space station is orbiting the planet multiple times throughout the day. It's not going to be for everyone. It's definitely a very quiet book. But if you like kind of meditating on those ideas of, why we're here and what is life and what does it mean to be so far removed from something that is, critical to us. It's a really interesting little book, but again, not for everyone. Then there is Signal Moon by Kate Quinn, which was an Amazon original story that I read last year, maybe. And it is two people literally talking across time as the signals get crossed. So our female protagonist is Lily. She is living in Yorkshire in 1943 during the war. She's a signal officer. There's one night where she picks up this call, a cry for help, except it's not from 1943. It's from 2023. And it's coming from Matt, who is a US officer who is manning the radios. And it is the two of them connecting through time to try and stop something from happening. It's super short, so I don't really want to give more than that away, but I really enjoyed it. And then there is A Matter of Disagreement by E. Ottoman, which is a queer historical sort of rivals to lovers story. And it's about the differences between two men who, one is very dedicated to the old way of doing things, the ancient literature and the spellcraft and all of that kind of thing. And he sort of contrast a Marquis who is very much into the modern day science. And it's kind of them clashing with ideas and actually falling for another and recognizing that they make each other better. It's also very short. I think it's only about 70 pages long. And the cover that I'm thinking of has the starry background and it's just really lovely. There is also Galaxies and Oceans by N.R. Walker, which also has a beautiful sort of cloudy, starry sky. And this, again, is a queer contemporary romance. One of our characters who is escaping a very toxic relationship, and he ends up on this tiny island off the coast of South Australia where the conditions are really harsh. It's not an easy part of the world to live in. He's starting a new life. He's given himself a new name to get away so that his ex-partner can't find him. There he meets Patrick, who is the lighthouse keeper on the island, and it's their relationship. It's very gorgeous. It's really lovely. You guys know I like a small town kind of setting, but I particularly like remote settings, like you know, tiny little islands that I would not voluntarily choose to live on myself because I would not survive. If you read nothing else from this recommendation list, please pick up this one because it's delightful. The last book that I picked was Rules of Redemption by T.A. Waite. I can't remember, I've probably talked about this series in another video, but it still fits, so it's included. It's book 1 in the Firebird Chronicles, and it is the series that I'm currently rereading with my friends, and we've got live shows about them. And it is essentially a space opera sci-fi romance. It is big and sweeping. There is not a single character in the series that I don't want to know more about or spend more time with. It's a woman discovering her past, her history, and reconciling that with the person that she's become. She was taken as a baby and she was essentially tortured and experimented on for a long time. And then she was saved and then utilized in a war that humans were fighting with an alien race. And so now, as an adult, she's finding out things about her past, her history, where she's come from, that she never really knew about, and it does not always quite go according to plan. The romance in here is amazing. It's a slow burn romance, but the banter and the chemistry between those characters are amazing, and all of the side characters are deeply, deeply fascinating. So yes, those are some recommendations, and that is the end of this vlog. I'm sorry, like I know I don't include lots of things in these vlogs, but I'm even less because this head cold is driving me up the wall. So it was just an effort to try and get through this vlog, but I'm glad with the books that I picked because they were just super cozy, perfect for Pride Month, and just really lovely stories that made me feel good even though my body does not feel great at the moment. So I will take that. I will take that as a win. In the comments, I'd love to know if you're participating in the buzzwordathon, readathon, and what you chose for these prompts, or feel free to leave your recommendations for either of the prompts down below as well in case other people are looking for different recommendations. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.